Hello, I'm Brian, and I'm the Theoretical Gamer. It's been a while, I know. Lots of stuff. Job, stuff like that. But I'm back, and I've got a review. Not of a game, but of a game company. TriTac Games. They've been around pretty much forever, since the 80s, in some form or another. They've never been big, they've never been well-known, and they've never been hugely popular. They've always been kind of a well-known little cult thing. TriTac Games. Created by a man named Richard Tucholka. I'm not going to list every game they have, but I'm going to go through like 2 or 3 of my favorites. There's one called, their flagship product is called Fringeworthy. Now, what is Fringeworthy about? Maybe a precious few of you will have heard of it, but I would say the vast majority of you haven't. It is, like I said, it's got a small but loyal cult following. What Fringeworthy is a complete and total ripoff of Stargate. In fact, it ripped off Stargate so well that it did it in 1982, many years before Stargate was even invented. Basically, the idea is this. A portal is discovered in Antarctica by a team of explorers. This portal allows you to go to basically other dimensions, to other alternate universes. So yes, alternate universes. So in a way, it ripped off Sliders before Sliders was even a thing. But the interesting version of it is they discover that very few people can go through the fringe portal onto the fringe paths, as they call them. About 1 in 100,000. Most people just walk through and come out the other side. So they find these crystals that glow in the presence of people who can use the fringe paths, the Fringeworthy as they are known. And they take them around to museums and show them off to people. Look what we discovered. And if they start to glow, they kind of take that person aside and say, hey, guess what? So, unlike, say, Stargate, where you get the best and the brightest, the scientists and the soldiers who can go through and explore other worlds, you get accountants. You get maybe some housewife that's trying to raise money to send her kids to college. You get, they're highly paid, and the secret of the fringe paths got out pretty early, so they're celebrities too. Everybody knows about it. They was not able to keep it a secret. Plus the fact that it's in Antarctica, so no one country owns it. It's pretty international. So which made a big stink over who gets control of it. And it fell under the purview of the United Nations. So finally the United Nations has something to do. The original version of it back in 1982 had its own system, which was ass. It was basically, back in the day when you didn't, it was before the systems were intended to be good. They were just hodgepodges of, we need a rule for what stat should we have? We need a rule to hit rolls. We'll just patch something together. It was like they just threw something together and hoped it worked. The latest version of it that came out was the D20 edition, based on the 3rd edition open game license D20 model. So when the open game license came available, they decided, we're going to redo Fringeworthy with the D20 system, and they worked hard on it, and they took their time, which means they came out with it a couple of years after the D20 craze had pretty much ended. It was like, a D20, who plays that anymore? So, but still, it's better than the original system, and it works. I should point something out, though. I wanted to point something out to you. that TriTac Games does not sell physical books. They don't have the means or the resources. They're not big enough to do that. But Richard Tucholka is a very old school type of thinker. He reminds me a little of Kevin Simbita over at Palladium Games. If you go back to the '90s, you had Wizards of the Coast. You had White Wolf, and you had Palladium Games. They were the huge ones. I think TSR was still there, but they died and were picked up by and D&D was picked up by Wizards during that time period. But and Kevin Simbita was one of the greatest game publishers of the '90s. And then there was this big collapse, and there was a big kind of a betrayal thing happening, like involving theft at Palladium Games. But he's still struggling, and he's still working, and he's building up Palladium Games because he was one of the best game publishers of the '90s. And I know that he honestly believes that if he works hard and puts his nose to the grindstone and busts ass, that once again he can be one of the best game publishers in the '90s. He does not want to move to the modern age. He wants to run the same business model that he had back then and have it work. Basically have to use pliers on him to do anything involving PDFs or it's like. And Richard Tucholka, the guy who does TriTac, does PDFs, but what happens is you go online, you buy the game, you buy Fringeworthy. You've bought the PDF. He then burns the PDF onto a CD-ROM and mails it to you. I'm serious. Now, if you go to the website, you find out that he has recently switched over to a download model for the one game, the D20 version of Fringeworthy. Right? So I think he's doing it as an experiment. He's, like I said, he's old school. I actually emailed him once and asked why he did that. And it wasn't really a solid answer, but he basically said that he doesn't feel like he's sold you something unless he sends you something, which I can understand even if I don't agree with it. So I think he's experimenting with having his one flagship product as a downloadable game. So hey, I hope it works. Fringeworthy is fascinating though. There's a whole once you get your team of randomly selected people together, you go through the portal and you find this kind of all these pathways through interdimensional space, which are miles long, right? And they lead to these platforms which have portals, and they're like nodes in there, and they follow patterns, and you can map them out, and it's weird. And so it's like you can have a day one campaign where you're for the characters play the first team, and figuring out how these nodes are laid out and mapping them, while at the same time, discovering the crazy shit that's on the other side of these paths. Because some of the it's and there's a whole backstory and history, where the fringe paths came from, who built them, why they're mostly shut down and abandoned now, what horror terrors are out there waiting that caused them to be shut down and abandoned. There are answers to those things, and they're out there, and you can play, and it's like it's a fascinating, interesting world, or fascinating, interesting worlds. So that was Fringeworthy. The next one is Bureau 13. Bureau 13 is another fairly deep and well realized world, but it's not as interesting to me. It's basically your standard. Basically, it ripped off X-Files before X-Files was a thing. You play government agents who work for this kind of secret government organization called Bureau 13, and you hunt monsters, and you explore, and you seek out the supernatural, and you investigate. And if you can deal with it peacefully, if you meet a monster and decide that he's not really a threat, he's just trying to survive, you have a certain degree of autonomy in that regard. But it is interesting. Bureau 13. There have been several different versions of it. In fact, I think there's a D20 version of it too. I might have to double check that. Let me check that. Yep, there is a D20 version of it. Now, to bring you to the next one. This will be the last one I mentioned. It's called Hardwired Hinterland. It's terrible. Oh God, is it terrible. It's so awful. It's horrible. Basically, it is, you look at it and it's full of bad spelling, bad editing, horrible non-art. I mean, do you know what Hero Machine is? Go to HeroMachine.com, and basically it's a kind of like a template that you can put together and create fantasy or superheroes, like heroes. That's simple enough for you can put it together from like templates and say, this is what my character looks like. When you go there, your first thought will be, oh, this is kind of cool. I could use this, just as a, if nothing else, as a fun diversion or toy, or to give a basic idea of what my character is. Your second thought is, oh my God, a game actually used this shit as actual in-game art? Yes, Hardwired Hinterland used Hero Machine as its interior art. It has no system. It has basically the bare bones skeleton of a world. It doesn't, with lots of holes. And some of its ideas are so stupid and so retarded that you have to wonder, like, how God could suffer a fuckwit who created this to exist on his world. It's terrible. I fucking love it. It's awesomely terrible. It's Mystery Science Theater 3000 terrible. It's amazing. It has no system because they jokingly call it in the first page the D0 system, which basically means when they give NPC stats, they basically say strength above average, intelligence average, and you can port that to whatever game system you like to use. It is designed to it's just basically a bare bones world that lets you you use whatever game system you prefer, D20 or otherwise, or Savage Worlds, or GURPS, or your own version of D&D, or whatever you want to put together. The world, it takes place in a place called the Hinterlands, which is it seems to be an artificially created world that people from all sorts of time periods get kind of sucked into. So you're walking to work one day, or you're driving to work and you make a left turn, and then boom, you're in this weird ass world called the Hinterlands. It's full of prefab cities. I mean, whoever built it built cities that are copies of, say, Akron, Ohio in the 1930s. Random stuff like that, and waiting for all these misplaced people from throughout time and space to move into, and no one knows why they're there, and no one knows what they're there for. If there's some kind of scientific experiment or not, no one knows. And it sounds like it would have a very weird, eclectic kitchen sink feel. No, it has a distinct feel. It has a kind of 30s, 40s pulp aviation feel. Airplanes are a big deal in this game. And it's the kind of thing that if you're making a character, it would not hurt to give your character some piloting skill, because that's going to be a part of the story. Um, a lot of people compare the feel of it to the cartoon Tailspin, which I suppose is a good enough comparison as any. Um, I don't want to give away too much because I might actually consider running it. I might actually try to recruit some people for Google Hangouts and and actually have them play around in this bizarre, wonderful, retarded world. Um, so I don't want to give away too much. So it would be like you create characters from the past, present, or future, and and they all just kind of end up here. And all of a sudden, you're getting into adventures, flying from island to island, and you know, just being cool. You get to wear a bomber jacket and goggles and the white scarf because that's cool. Hardwired Hinterland. It's so bizarre, so weird. Anyways, TriTac Games. It's got a few other things. It's got a few other games. Some are very interesting. Some are just not. But some. So I recommend you go look at it. I'll put a link down there. Um, and it's good. By the way, it's good to be back. It's good to be making videos again. Peace out.